Hey guys, this is Chris Dixon, Senior Editor with Power and Motoryacht Magazine, coming to you from Ripley Marina in Charleston, South Carolina. I am here with Pete Nistad and Chris Nistad, and we're aboard Footloose, which is a 33-foot hand-built, cold-molded center console that Chris built for his dad. And these two have a long history with tugboats here in Charleston, interestingly enough. And I thought we'd just talk to them quickly about this boat. We just went out on the harbor and blasted around on it. It really is a phenomenal riding boat, and it's just pretty cool to me that you've got a father-son project here with a boat that'll go 50 miles an hour and handles like nothing I've really ever ridden on. So definitely noting pounding through the waves out on the harbor, you just don't even hear them. It was really cool. Chris, talk a little bit about, show us some highlights of this boat. Talk a little bit about your philosophy. You've built a couple of good-sized sport fishers with some well-known builders here, Frank Middleton and Mark Bain, to name a couple. Yeah, and talk about how your kind of experience informed what you ended up designing here. And take us through it.
There was a time when people were building boats that went really fast and had a lot of engines, and I never saw the point in that. Going 70 miles per hour on a sport fishing boat didn't seem to make much sense to me. So what I thought was important was a really good ride, and so sacrificing ridiculous speeds for a ride, we built this boat, what we call heavy, but it still weighs the same as whatever a comparable production fiberglass boat.
Yeah.
But it feels like you're on a 50-foot custom sport fishing boat, and so the ride was important to me. When my dad was like, let's build a boat, that's when I got to try that idea, and I didn't know if it was going to work. And then we built the boat, and it did.
And you had Steve French design.
Steve French designed the boat, and that was a really fun process. I had heard about Steve French, and I'd heard about the waveform hull. So I called him on the phone and I said, hey, listen, I want to build a boat that's this size. Let's design this thing. And so everything from the waterline down, there was no way I was going to mess around with that, because he knows what he's doing under the water.
Yes.
And it was really neat because I got to design on the computer with him what it looked like from the waterline up.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
And so we were looking at, on the computer, I was like, well, take this point of the boat and move it this way, and then move it this way, and then move it back this way. And so then we had a profile of the boat, and then we all right, let's look at it from the top, and then
well, let's show us around the boat.
Right, let me say real quick though,
that,
then the next part, which I think is the most important part about this boat, was that you come up with design, and then he says, all right, we got to build the jig, and the jig is it's the framing of the boat. It's what's holding everything in place, and he said, all right, what are your stringers going to be? And then I told him. He was like, what? I was like, yes, this is what I want my stringers to be, because I don't want the boat to go 70. I want this boat to be solid, because I want to go fishing. I don't care how fast it goes. I want to go fishing, and I want it to be comfortable.
We still
go pretty qualifier.
fast.
It still goes really fast.
We
still go, what, 50?
But it doesn't go 70 or 80 or whatever these crazy boats do with all these motors. This boat goes fast enough, and it is comfortable.
The neat thing about this boat is we can go offshore, go fishing in a 5 or 6 foot sea, and still go along at 30. Squish, squish, squish. Not pound.
It's amazing.
The ride is amazing.
It is. I'll vouch for that. I will vouch for that.
Okay, so some of the features are.
What were you thinking? Because you wanted ultimate fishability. So let's just So show us.
I wanted fishability. I also wanted big boat feel. So the covering boards are big boat covering boards, and the teak and all of that. And then one of the most important things to me was I wanted cleanliness on the boat. I don't want to look at bilge pump switches. Because I build boats. I don't build bilge pumps. So if you look at the dash, there's the only things on the dash are the things that you need.
Right.
You know, like if you go fishing, you're gonna leave in the morning and you're gonna turn your running lights on, and when the sun comes up, you're gonna turn your running lights off. And you don't need to look at that switch all day long,
Right.
or any of the other switches. So all of those are somewhere else.
They're underneath the inside of the hatch
Inside.
door there,
Yeah.
right against the wall. Very easy to get to.
Yeah, yeah. They're easy to get to. They're open the door and they're there.
Right.
Well, I don't want that. Do you?
Not really. Not really. And you have two VHFs. You've got a VHF down there
Yeah.
inside, then you've also got a handheld VHF if you need it.
Right.
Or right
So
here that you can plug right in.
we had the handheld VHF because I didn't want to look at the coil
Right.
all day long. If you need to use the VHF, then you plug it in and you use it. When you're not done, I mean, when you're not using it, you're done. You put it away.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
you don't have to look at that cord because I didn't design that cord, and I'm not interested in it.
So yeah, and the deck is really, really wide open.
So we
great
built
for
this
getting around
boat
to
for
fish.
fishing,
Yeah.
and so one of the things that we did was we made sure that there was a lot of room around the console.
Mm-hmm.
And we weren't going to try to fit a bedroom down there or anything like that. It was important for my dad and my mom to have a head on the boat,
Mm-hmm.
and there's plenty of room down there for a head.
And yeah, and it's a nice, perfectly comfortable head.
Yeah.
And I was noticing too, you've got. What was your thinking with regards to the T-top and even having your forward your forward windscreen and stuff like that?
With the T-top, I want it clean. I see T-tops that have 15 or 30 facets and hatches. And I don't know that there's. To me, going fishing, I didn't have a need for that, so I didn't put it
Did
there.
you agree with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I like simple and clean, and
Which is the
function.
way Hinckley built it up. But Chris was building me a center console Hinckley.
Gotcha. And I was noticing, Chris, too, one of the things we were talking about is your continuous running surface back here. A lot of times you'll see a boat that has, an extension like this, and there'll be a step up, in the back or that sort of thing. This is just continuous surface. all the way back.
continuous running surface. And to me, that was part of a comfortable ride. And why would I make the boat shorter? Let's just, and then that was, to me, it was a no-brainer. I don't know why they do it the other way, But I was like, let's do this instead, because I thought the other way was not smart.
Now, how about now, two things that you told me that I thought were pretty interesting is your design of your scuppers for one,
Uh-huh.
and then the strategic location of some of your speakers and the reason for the speakers being where they are.
Right. So that still goes along with what I think is pretty and what I want to look at on a boat. And so I don't want to look at aftermarket plastic pieces of whatever they sell that you hook a hose to so water can get out of the boat.
Right.
I can do better than that. And so what we did was we put a box under the deck, and then we have like slots in the side of the boat, and we spent a lot of time to make those slots really pretty. And
So that's where the scuppers drain to.
So the scuppers drain into these boxes, but so do the bilge pumps.
Okay.
There you go,
Right.
right there.
Didn't want that.
Yeah. So if you look at this boat in profile, you'll see that the top of the console is perfectly parallel to the shear
Okay.
where it is on the boat.
Let's walk up.
And then the
forward.
dashboard, where the pod is is perfectly parallel to the shear at that point in the boat.
Ah, okay. So
And
your angles are
I don't know
the
if-
same.
Yeah, these two angles are different. But this matches this, and this matches this. And I don't know that anybody would notice that. But if they didn't match,
You would notice.
they might notice that there's something that they don't quite like about the boat. Now I see a lot of boats, and I'm like, I don't quite like that. And me being me, I'll find out what that is.
Right.
But other people won't. But they'll notice there's something that's not quite right. And so I made sure that was not something that was going to be distracting.
Okay.
I don't want anything to be distracting from the overall presentation of this thing that I think is a work of art. When you make it right, nobody's going to, they're not going to notice that it's right, but they're going to notice when it's wrong.
It's a blessing.
Well, I don't
and a
really
curse,
care
though,
whether they're going to notice or not. I'm making it right, period. And that's everything on this boat, like this.
Yeah, let's look at this little trim. This was an interesting little point here.
So
Tell us about
there's
this.
18 of these things on this boat, and when you buy these sticks of stainless steel, they come square on the end. And
So these were not bought rounded.
no, this comes in an 18-foot stick,
Okay.
and you can cut it off, and then you can kind of chamfer the edge or do whatever, and then stick it on the boat. But that's not perfect. That's perfect.
And I would add too, our angles with these screws, they're all at 90 degrees. They're all at perfect right angles here. So yeah, it speaks to kind of exactly what you're talking about. And they're in exactly the position that you need to prevent line chafe from the two lines that are attached to your retractable cleat, which is retractable so that you can keep stuff out of the way when you're fishing, right?
Right. Yeah, that was important too.
Now
Because we don't need a cleat all day long. We only need a cleat when we're docked.
Mm-hmm.
So it had to go away.
Right.
And then I saw the ones that flip down, but they were cheap. And I can't remember who makes these, but they don't make them small.
No. Now, do we have?
So these are for like a 60-foot boat.
Okay. Now, do we have is that a fish locker down here?
This was part of the thing. My brother and I, well, my dad had, my brother and I used a 31-foot Ocean Master. that had
Ocean Master.
a great big fish box. And so when you caught a fish, you just open the fish box and you shake it off the gaff into the ice and close the fish box and keep on fishing.
Right.
So we built, you want me to open it?
Sure. Yeah. That's great.
So it was like, we thought, hey, we need a great big fish box.
Wow, that is a great big fish box.
And it's a little dirty because
That's all right.
the boat is 7 years old
Yeah.
and it has fished a lot.
There's been a lot of fish in that fish box.
Been a lot of fish in
Yeah, there have been a lot of, yeah.
That's awesome.
Chris's mom and I have had a lot of good dinners based on the fishing.
With the help of that fish box, yeah. Well, guys, one other point I wanted to make. We mentioned the speakers. Now, you made the
right.
speakers so that tell me
Right.
about what you did with
So,
the speakers.
Those plastic circles.
Oh, yeah.
And they're on all the production boats.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really quite sure why. I will see a production boat that's got the plastic circle and a speaker. Why don't we just get rid of the plastic circle and we'll do the things that we need to do through the speaker. So all of our plumbing and wiring connections are done. You just take the speaker out and you do that.
That's cool.
And then underneath the leaning post, there's a great big subwoofer so that if we ever need to get to the sending unit, we can get to the sending unit. And we also have a great big subwoofer, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, gentlemen, I really appreciate the time. I'm looking forward to not only, I mean, I got to sightsee on the boat today, but I'm really looking forward to hopefully going fishing.
You're
with
coming
you guys.
fishing for
Oh,
sure.
for sure.
Definitely.
For
I'm
sure.
bringing my
For sure.
son, and I'm looking really forward to it. And this is Chris Dixon, senior editor with Power Motoryacht. I'm here with Chris Nistad. Pete Nistad is dad, and we will see you guys on the water, maybe on this. Over and out. That was awesome.
This has been the best day.